I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, I'm not sure.
Remember when a movie about gossip, weddings, and hair appointments turned into one of the most heartbreaking stories Hollywood ever told? 6 women in a Louisiana beauty parlor who made you laugh until they made you cry. A story written in 10 days by a man who had just lost his sister. Julia Roberts in her first major role. Dolly Parton, who was told she couldn't act, a director so consumed by his own grief that the cast had to protect each other from him, and a real nurse who had disconnected someone's life support in 1985, hired to do it again on camera. Steel Magnolias, 1989. 16 facts, including how the film accidentally harmed the women it was trying to honor, and the one truth Robert Harling spent 10 days trying to say. Fact 1. The doctors and nurses who had treated Susan Harling Robinson in her final days were cast in the film to play themselves. Harling tracked down the actual medical professionals from his sister's final days and asked them to recreate those moments on camera. The doctors who treated Susan played the doctors treating Shelby. The nurse who disconnected Susan's life support in 1985 did the same for Julia Roberts on screen. They were not actors, they were medical professionals reliving the worst day of their careers for a film camera. Fact 2. Harling's mother chose to be on set during the death scene. She watched Julia Roberts reenact her daughter's final moments. When Harling asked why, she told him, "I wanted to see Julia get up and walk away." The medical equipment was real. The procedures were based on actual events. At the end of the take, Roberts stood up. Harling's mother had finally seen the version where her daughter survived. Fact 3. Meg Ryan turned down the role of Shelby to make When Harry Met Sally. Both decisions turned out to be correct. Ryan was attached first, then she was offered When Harry Met Sally, a romantic comedy where she would be the lead rather than one of 6. She told Harling she needed her shot as a leading lady. Steel Magnolias launched Roberts. When Harry Met Sally made Ryan the queen of romantic comedy. Both made the right call. Fact 4. Nicole Kidman played Shelby on stage in Australia before Julia Roberts ever auditioned for the film. Before the film, Steel Magnolias toured internationally as a play. One production reached Sydney, where a young Nicole Kidman made her professional stage debut playing Shelby. Kidman was largely unknown. Roberts would be cast in the film the following year. Both went on to legendary careers and multiple Oscars. Kidman had the role first. Roberts had it at the right moment in the right medium. Fact 5. Dolly Parton and Daryl Hannah spent weeks studying with professional hairdressers. Parton created an actual elaborate updo on Julia Roberts during the wedding scene while delivering dialogue. Both had to style hair on camera while hitting marks and saying lines. Parton's hands doing the actual work on screen. Hannah had to learn to style convincingly and then make it look like she was still learning. The salon scenes work because the hairstyling is real. Fact 6. Filming ran through the Louisiana summer in full winter wardrobe. Dolly Parton never once complained. She also never visibly sweated. The holiday scenes were shot above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The cast wore full winter layers. Roberts described everyone holding ice on their wrists between takes, audibly suffering. Parton wore the same costume and said nothing. Roberts later said she never saw a drop of sweat on her. Parton's explanation. When she was young and had nothing, she wanted to be rich and famous. Now she was. She wasn't going to complain about anything. Fact 7. Bette Davis lobbied personally for the role of Weezer. She suggested Katharine Hepburn for Clary and Elizabeth Taylor for Truvy. Then she threatened Robert Harling on his way out the door. Davis invited Harling to tea and made her case. Hollywood legends bringing gravitas to Louisiana women. As Harling left, Davis told him, "You may give the role to someone else, but you and they will hear from Bette Davis." Shirley MacLaine got the part. At 55, she brought the right mix of tartness and vulnerability. MacLaine was perfect. Fact 8. The armadillo groom's cake was real. A professional baker made it multiple times. It became an actual wedding trend across the South. The cake had to be remade for different takes. Someone spent days making edible armadillos. Harling included it as gentle mockery of Southern excess. He was making a joke. Southern bakeries started receiving requests for armadillo groom's cakes. The trend spread for years. Harling's sister never had one. That detail was invented for comedy. Decades later, real couples are still serving real armadillo cakes at real weddings. A role that launched two separate careers in two different mediums. A legend who threatened the playwright on his way out the door. Real grief reconstructed on camera with the people who had lived through it. Up to here, how the film was assembled. From here, what it cost and what it became. Fact 9. Sally Field's Cemetery Breakdown was filmed in one take. She was not nominated for the Oscar. Julia Roberts was. Field had been building toward that scene through the entire shoot. When the moment came, she released everything. Ross called cut after one take and didn't ask for another. The scene contains some of the finest acting Field has ever delivered. She was not nominated. Roberts was. Anyone who has seen the film remembers Field's breakdown. One take captured something that couldn't have been repeated. Fact 10. Herbert Ross was grieving his wife throughout filming. He directed a movie about women coping with death while drowning in his own. Ross's wife, ballet dancer Nora Kay, had died in 1987. He was brutal toward Roberts, who was 21 and in her first major film. McClane confronted him directly. His behavior had not been respectful to Nora's memory or to the cast. The confrontation didn't fix everything. The film that resulted was more emotionally devastating than it might have been. Ross was channeling pain. The cast was channeling grief. Neither was entirely acting. Fact 11. Roberts' vulnerability on screen came partly from genuine distress. Ross's cruelty accidentally made her performance more authentic. Ross criticized everything Roberts did. She cried a lot. The other actresses formed a protective circle around her. The raw emotion that earned Roberts her first Oscar nomination. The uncertainty, the fragility of someone who doesn't quite believe she belongs, came partly from being genuinely fragile. The director who tried to diminish her created the performance that launched her career. Fact 12. Robert Harling had never written a play before. He wrote Steel Magnolias in 10 days because a friend told him to write about it as a way to process his sister's death. Harling locked himself in a room and 10 days later emerged with a complete play. He had no formal training. He just wrote the women he had grown up around. It ran off-Broadway in 1987. 3 years later, it grossed $97 million worldwide. Fact 13. Steel Magnolias has spent 30 years scaring diabetic women away from having children. Medical professionals are still correcting it. Susan's situation was specific to her particular combination of diabetes and kidney disease, not a universal truth about type 1 diabetes. Diabetics can have healthy pregnancies. Millions of viewers drew the wrong conclusion. Diabetes advocacy groups have spent decades fighting what they call the Steel Magnolias effect, women refusing to consider pregnancy because of what they saw in a movie. Harling wrote a tribute to his sister's courage. It accidentally became a warning. Fact 14. Robert Harling's nephew, Susan's son, grew up knowing his mother through a film that millions of people have seen. Susan named her son Robert after her brother. He was 2 when she died. Harling wrote Steel Magnolias partly as a gift for the boy, a way for him to understand the woman his mother had been. Robert Jr. has Julia Roberts playing his mother on screen and a global audience who cries at his mother's funeral. The child Susan died to bring into the world became the reason her story reached the world. Fact 15. Harling did not set out to write a play. He set out to write a short story for his nephew so the boy would know who his mother was. What began as a few pages expanded into something Harling couldn't contain. Friends told him it needed to be performed. The beauty salon was already a stage, a place where women performed versions of themselves while telling the truth. He had written something real and accidentally produced something universal. Fact 16. Susan Harling Robinson was told her pregnancy might kill her. She had her son anyway. Robert Harling wrote the story of what happened. The rest is what you already know. Susan died 2 years later. Her brother locked himself in a room and wrote about the women who had surrounded that loss. Their voices, their humor, their refusal to stop living. The film has made audiences cry for 35 years. Susan's son grew up. Robert Harling became a playwright. Susan is still there in every viewing. She just got up and walked away.